Hi, my name is Matthew Tracy. I'm professor of saxophone at Southwestern Oklahoma State University in Weatherford, Oklahoma. I'm here today to talk to you about our alto saxophone first round all-state audition etudes. The first of these etudes can be found on page 9 of the Voxman Selected Studies book. It's in D minor and it's entitled Allegro Furioso. There's not too much complicated rhythmically in this etude. The most important thing that we recognize is that our 16th notes stay at a steady tempo and we're not rushing through individual groupings of 16th notes. One of the only times that we have rhythms other than straight 16th notes are figures like at the very beginning, where we have a quarter note tied to a 16th note on beat 2. Students often tend to rush this quarter note, placing the 16th notes that follow earlier in time than what they should be. The best way that we can fix this is with our metronome. So turn on our metronome to a slow tempo, maybe 60 beats per minute, and count. The really important thing is that we feel where beat 2 happens. So we can use any of our counting systems. I prefer the 1E and a 2E and a system. A lot of people tend to use the Takadimi or the 1T Teta system. So you can use whatever works for you, whatever your preferred counting system is. I'm going to use the 1E and a system for now. So here's what we do. We look at this rhythm and we say 1E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a. And we try it again. 1E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a. By doing this and emphasizing beat 2 without actually re-articulating anything on beat 2, we can get a better sense of how to feel this rhythm. 1E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a. In order for us to begin learning this piece technically, it's extremely important that we understand the pieces that come together to create this piece, the scales and the arpeggios that Ferling used to write this music. And the most important one for us to start is the D minor scale. This etude is in the key of D minor, so we better be able to play our D minor scale if we want to do it. D minor has a key signature of 1 flat. It starts on D, and I'm going to take the C natural and I'm going to raise it a half step to C sharp so we can add a leading tone in. D minor sounds like this. Notice I played that scale full range, meaning I started on my low D, I went up to the highest note that I could play in the key, which is high F, and I continue down to the lowest note on the saxophone that's in that key, and that's a low B flat, before ending right where I started on that low D. So we use the D full range minor scale, D harmonic minor full range. The other scale that's super important in this piece is the full range chromatic scale. Ferling uses this all over the place in this etude, and it's important that we can play it. If we can't play our full range chromatic scale, it's going to be really tough for us to be able to play this piece cleanly. When I say full range, I mean starting on our lowest note, low B flat, going up to the highest note, high F sharp, and ending right back where we started. Ferling uses this chromatic scale starting with a lot of freedom. He puts it everywhere in the piece, and we've got to be able to start anywhere and end anywhere in this chromatic scale, and I think playing the scale full range is the best way to accomplish that. Now when we play this full range chromatic scale, it's really important, number one, that we're using the correct fingerings for the chromatic scale. First, when we flip from F to F sharp, F to F sharp, we can't be flipping back and forth like this. Instead, we use this special key right here, the alternate F sharp key. We're going to go F, F sharp, G. So to practice this, we do just that. Next, our next side fingering that's really important is the side C. Going from B to C in flipping is going to cause us lots of problems when we're trying to increase the tempo in this piece. Oh, that's just sloppy. Instead, we can use this fancy side C fingering. So it's B, we add that key, and it becomes C. Adding those fingerings into your chromatic scale warm-ups and your chromatic scale exercises is going to be one of the most important things for you in improving your technique in general. Again, always play your scales with metronome at whatever tempo is slow enough that you can play it perfectly. I think that's a really important thing. That's the key. We've always got to be playing things as slow as we need to not be making mistakes and not be practicing mistakes. Next, we have to look at the individual arpeggios that Ferling uses. On line 4 in this etude, we start with the A major arpeggio. So that's one I think is really important for us to be able to play full range. A major arpeggio, A, C sharp, E, A, C sharp, E. And we can practice that arpeggio. Another one that's really important, did we mention that we're in the key of D minor? Maybe we should learn our D minor arpeggio. D minor arpeggio has the notes D, F, A. Those are the two most important major and minor arpeggios that we're going to find in this piece. They represent the tonic triad, the D minor, and the dominant triad, A major. Finally, I think that Ferling is really creative in his use of fully diminished seventh chords when he's writing music. In this piece, he uses all 3 fully diminished seventh chords that exist. There's only 3 of them in all of music, and Ferling uses all of them. The first one is on line 5, and it starts on F sharp. And the notes that make up this arpeggio are F sharp, A, C, and E flat. That's an arpeggio that we can learn. Again, the notes are F sharp, A, C, E flat. Learning that outside of the context of this piece allows us to have that line 5 be much easier for us, and we don't have to spend so much time digging in and trying to read the individual notes when we recognize that it's just an F sharp fully diminished seventh chord. The next one happens in the very next measure, and it is C sharp fully diminished seventh. The notes for this are C sharp, E, G, and B flat. Another arpeggio that we've got to learn, and we've got to learn full range. C sharp, E, G, B flat, and then we repeat. C sharp, E, G, B flat. Again, C sharp, E, that gets us to the top of the range. C sharp fully diminished seventh chord. The last fully diminished seventh chord we get happens at the very bottom of the page. Okay? And this is rooted on G sharp. It's our G sharp fully diminished seventh chord, and it's the first measure of our very last line in this etude. The notes for this arpeggio are G sharp, B, D, and F. Okay, so what Ferling does in this is he actually starts on F, goes down to B, and then kind of goes all the way up to the top. So it's in a different order. It doesn't start where we would expect it to, but he goes down, comes back up, and it's the G sharp fully diminished seventh chord. Okay, so these are the technical elements that make up this piece of music that we've got to be really good at before we even start. Okay, that's the D minor scale. We talked about the D harmonic minor scale where we use C sharp. The full range chromatic scale, because Ferling uses chromatic passages all over this thing. The A major triad, because it represents the dominant triad in this piece. The D minor triad, because it represents the tonic triad in this piece. And finally, our 3 fully diminished seventh chords. Okay, we end with the G sharp, but before that we've got our F sharp and C sharp fully diminished seventh chords. Cool. I hope this helps you with the technique of this piece and to really figure out the things that go into it and the things that Ferling is using and the scales that we can take here and we can use and apply to all of our music learning in the future. The last thing I want to talk about in this etude is Ferling's use of dynamics. If you look at it, you'll notice that there's nothing in it quieter than mezzo forte. It's all forte and mezzo forte, and at the very end we get fortissimo. Now that doesn't mean that we don't ever have to play quiet in this, or that we don't ever get to play quiet. I think we can make a lot of really interesting musical decisions, and we can make a lot of our crescendos feel bigger if we back away right before that. And I'm just going to demonstrate that with the very first line in this piece. It starts with an accent forte, and then we come away to mezzo forte, and then we crescendo. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come away from forte down to mezzo forte, but then I'm going to decrescendo just a little bit before we start that crescendo back up to forte. And I'll play it both ways. The first way I'll play it exactly as written. I'll come down to mezzo forte and just crescendo. And the second way, I'll make that crescendo more dramatic by backing off even farther, okay, getting softer right before we start crescendoing. So here's the first way. Okay, not bad. Now here's the second way where I actually get even softer than the music is written. We're taking as many opportunities as we can to find the softs. Now, that's not necessarily written in the music, but we can find opportunities to do that lots of times in this piece. Really, any time that we've got a crescendo, we can take our dynamic down just 10 or 20% from the written dynamic so that crescendo feels like it gives us even more forward momentum and it makes the music feel even more intense. Thanks.